be a big surprise, but I'm an Apple fan.
Fair. How far is the moon?
The average distance between Earth and the moon is 238,856 miles.
When was the first car built?
Here's an answer from Wikipedia. In 1769, the first steam-powered automobile capable of human transportation was built by Nicholas Joseph Cugnot.
It's new information, right? What's the largest dinosaur?
Here's an answer from Wikipedia. The sauropods were the largest and heaviest dinosaurs.
Anybody want to confirm that? Do you have a different answer? No? What's the farthest a human can swim?
Here's what I found.
Lists of websites. She's like, that's too much. You've exceeded your questions. I was thinking about this all week. Like, we have information in our pockets that, like, we can know things on the dot that we don't have to research, we don't have to experience ourselves. Like, we can just gain knowledge 24/7. Literally, when you ask Siri stuff, the little bar that pops up says knowledge, and then it starts to kind of tell you what's going on. Any second of the day, you have access to information. To find out what's true, what's not, maybe. To experience things through other people's experience. To maybe grow in some ways by learning some new competencies. And as I was thinking through that, I thought about René Descartes, who was a philosopher, and he said, I am, I think, therefore I am. Meaning that, like, I have thoughts going on, that's how I know I'm alive. And I wonder if in our modern day, it's more that I know, therefore I am. Meaning that if I know something, that means I'm human. That means I'm alive. That means I am something. To have knowledge. And I wonder at what point knowledge gives us certainty in our life. Like, I know for me, if I'm going into something new, especially if it's attached to leadership, like, I love to know that I know things. I love to know that I might have an answer. I love to know kind of maybe how things are going to go, or at least I can perceive how they're not going to go to better prepare for that. But I want to have knowledge so that I can find a form of certainty. And I wonder if the rate at which we can gain new knowledge, if it is actually a way in which we grow in certainty. That at any moment, if we're uncertain about something, we can now become certain in a heartbeat. And as we grow in knowledge, we grow in certainty, but then life happens. And the thing that we got knowledge about that gave us certainty actually didn't give us the certainty that we were looking for. The experience that we were hoping for, or the experience that we want, the experience that we're perceiving through this new knowledge doesn't actually happen. How certain are you in life? Like right now, are you uncertain about anything? Or are you just certain in everything? And then how much of that is attached to the knowledge? The knowledge of competency, or maybe even just the knowledge of what's going to happen. Because if I don't have knowledge about what's going to happen, I tend to feel more uncertain. And what we want to do for the next 5 weeks coming off of this is look at scriptures, because what tends to happen is now these are the type of things that start to play out in our relationships. Where gaining knowledge, gaining understanding, I think I'm growing, I'm becoming a person of whatever it is that I want to grow in. Yet relationships still take work. And if you ask anybody what's most important in life, oftentimes at top of the list, if not at least top 2 or 3, people would say relationships. And then people would also recognize that while they might be the most important, they might actually also be the most challenging. Relationships are extremely hard. And so what we want to do is look at 5 statements that actually can help us build connection in our relationships. So very practical. But what's interesting, though, is it actually requires us to give up control. It actually requires us to give up certainty. So what I want to do is look at James. So James was the half-brother of Jesus. So he would probably know a good amount of who Jesus is, because He knew the stuff when he was like 8 and they used to like put each other in headlocks when they grew up together. You guys ever have those weird thoughts that Jesus is like fully human and he just did fully human stuff? Right, so James knows him in that, and then James also knows him as like just like dropping wisdom as a 12-year-old amongst like theologians and scholars. And so he knows the dichotomy of who Jesus is and what he have to say. So James actually extracts some things in the book of James to give us some new knowledge. So in James chapter 4, it says this. Now listen, you who say today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business, and make money. He continues. Why? You do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. So James very quickly takes this idea of certainty and says, who do you think you are? You talk about it as if you're going to do all these things, and it's going to happen tomorrow, and the next month it's going to happen, and the year out it's going to happen, and 5 years from now I'm going to do this, and these are the people and how they're going to be, and you plan all this stuff out, and why do you do that? You actually have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. And don't forget, you don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. You might even not even be alive tomorrow. For your life is like a mist. It's here for a second, and then it's gone. It's here for a second, and it's gone. So what you should actually say is, man, here's the things that I think I want to have happen. Here's the things I feel maybe God called me. Here's the things that I think would be good. God, what do you think? You know, if God thinks so, then yeah, maybe that's some good stuff. But you know what? God might actually have other plans. God might be doing something different than the certainty that I have in life or the certainty that I'm looking for. God might even be doing something different when I don't even have certainty in my life. So essentially what he's saying, if we boil down this, he says, you do not even know. So people who have knowledge at lightning speed, faster than any generation, faster than any culture, faster than anyone before us, we can gain knowledge after knowledge after knowledge. We can make plans. We can have ideas of what the future looks like. We can work towards the desires of our hearts. And James says, you do not even know. You don't even know. Which then I wonder, for you and I, are we able to say this statement regularly in our life? I don't know. Caitlin and I were sitting on the couch earlier like this week, and she goes, what are you talking about on Sunday? And I'm like, I don't know. And she goes, no, what are you saying? Well, I don't know. That's the title of it. She goes, oh, okay. Well, what's that about? And I was like, I don't know. Legitimately, I didn't know if it was ironic, but titling something like this and then getting into the week and still being I don't know what I'm going to say. I read the passage and I sit with it, all the normal things I do in a week, and I'm still later in the week, I don't know. So I'm here to tell you I don't know. I don't. There's so many things within this, even as we plan out this series and we look the next 5 weeks, here's all the different statements we're going to talk through and why it matters and why I think it's actually going to help us build a relationship. But at the end of the day, I don't know. I really don't. So what I'm proposing to you is that the invitation to transformation this morning is, can we become people that say, I don't know? Now, here's the deal. We can't just walk around saying, I don't know all the time, right? Me, in my role in this church, if I literally just told you all the time I don't know, at some point you're like, all right, man, I'm out. Someone's got to know some of this stuff, right? We can't just go around saying, I don't know all the time. But that doesn't also mean we can go around saying, I know all the time. That I know, that I have the answers, that I have the right way, that I know what's best, not only for my life, but for yours, that I know the things that are going to happen because I'm in control, that I have certainty because of the knowledge of this or that, or I can grow in competency, and therefore I know. And James is saying, no, you don't. You don't know. And I don't know about you, but that is highly uncomfortable. I don't like that feeling. I don't like not knowing. I don't like not knowing what's going on in my relationships, what's going on in my marriage, what's going on inside of me, what's going on in my parenting, what's going on with all of us. I don't like not having answers, especially when I'm spending time to work towards what God might have for us. You want to really talk about not knowing. The relationship's here, but also the relationship here. I don't know. But we have a culture that is built on I know. The more knowledge we have, the more power we have. The one that can have answers to everything oftentimes can relieve the anxiety in the room, but it isn't it just for a short period of time, because it's not seconds later until we realize there's another thing that we don't know. There's another aspect of our life that we don't know. Now, James is talking here about making plans for our life, that we're going to move to this city, that we're going to have this business, that we're going to make money in these ways. And I wonder if we actually take this idea that we're growing in self-knowledge, to puff ourselves up, to think too much about the things that we do know and what we can plan, and if we actually take that into our relationships. And what I did sit with this week, the things that I did think through, were 3 areas of relationships that I wonder if we said, I don't know, more often, we might actually build better relationships with people. And the first one is this: values and beliefs. Now, I don't know about you, but in my young life, like the last couple years, what's happened politically and what goes on in social media and what goes on in just the worlds that we live in, the idea to have a value or belief is becoming harder and harder to have, because others do not want you to have a value or belief because it's different than their value or belief. Or maybe I can put it this way: who in your life has a different value or belief than you, and that's caused relational friction? Who doesn't see the world the same way that you do, and now you're angry or frustrated with them? Who doesn't see the world politically like you do, and so you need to cut them off? Who doesn't actually see God the same way, therefore they just don't get it, and I don't think we can keep being friends? Or even simple things like, I don't know, Caitlin and I, when we're driving the car, I think you should have gone left there. And then but you could also go straight and then take another left up there. I'm like, well, no, the right way was to go left there. So, I mean, we can talk about the big things: politics, religion, worldview, and it's also the small things. Like, which way does the toilet paper roll go? Somehow you have, it's the top to the bottom. But anyways, see, there it is. We can't be friends. But that's so quickly, we have values and beliefs. And here's the deal. You don't know most of the values and beliefs that you have until you oftentimes say something like, oh, man, I can't believe they think this. How do they not see the right way? Do they just not get it? Who raised them? Have they been under? Don't they see and we just keep going because you have a value or belief around something, whether spoken or unspoken. Now, here's the deal. I'll stop here because we could go down this road way too long. Your values and beliefs are actually something that can create connection with other people, even when they don't hold the same value and belief. They do not have to divide us. I know that's a profound statement, especially right now, but I know that's who Jesus is and what he actually brings to the table, is that we could actually see people with different political views. I just read one recently, Cornel West, and I can't remember the other guy's name, but Cornel West is a black man who's a Democrat, actually sits down and has a conversation with a white man who's a conservative Republican, and they do the thing where they have a conversation about the things that they see in the worldview they have and why they see it this way, and they have a conversation, and it's good, and healthy things come from it. And I wonder if the deal, and this is with all of this, the values and beliefs. I have a worldview, okay, in my mid-30s. I sat in a certain place for 30-something years. What oftentimes happens is we stand from the place that we sat, meaning that I can't fully control the way in which I sat. Now, here's the deal. You look across this room, and for every single person, you sat in a different place for the years of your life, meaning that you and I are going to stand up a little bit differently. if not drastically differently. So now here's the thing. I'm not saying I don't know what I think about God. I don't know what I think about politics. I don't know what I think about this or that, the things that I value or hold belief in. But it's the posture of I don't know. Yeah, the way I was raised and my parents thought this, and I've had these experiences in my life and I've seen it this way, but I don't fully know. What do you think? I don't know. How did you view that? I don't know. How did that impact your life? Well, that's super interesting. I don't think I have it fully figured out yet either. I want you to tell me more. Like, do you feel the change in that? It doesn't have to just be you saying, I know nothing in life, but it's a posture of saying, I only have a sliver of the story. I only have a tiny bit of the information. I don't know. There's so much more for me to learn. Think about your life 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Think about how much has changed and how much you've changed and how much you think differently than maybe you did then. Because right now, you don't know what you're going to know a year from now. You don't know what you're going to know tomorrow. You don't know what you're going to know 2 years from now. And I don't know. I'm trying to figure this out. And I think what James is doing here is he's drawing on a life of Jesus who asked a lot of questions. Conway and Gimp wrote a book called Jesus Asked, and he said this. Jesus asks a lot of questions, but doesn't ask primarily because he wants to acquire knowledge in order to help others realize they already have the knowledge. He asks to help people realize where they stand. He asks questions in order to give an occasion for a reply, in order to initiate a conversation. What Jesus wanted to know, what Jesus was dying to know in regard to this specific passage was, why do you call me good? Who do you say I am? Jesus asked more questions to the questions he was asked than he did actually give answers. Do you know that? Like if life with God and with others was about information and knowledge and having the right thing, well, you'd have to have a pretty large conversation with Jesus because he pretty much just asked people to think differently than they already were. He did not just go around giving knowledge and answers to people's questions. It exponentially more. He asked questions because he wanted to help draw out curiosity. He wanted to help draw out mystery. He wanted to help draw out the unknown spaces in our lives to actually step outside of to a larger worldview than just our own. Okay, next one. Grief and loss. Relationships. You yourself, people you know that experience, are experienced, have experienced, will experience grief and loss. One of the things I continue to learn more and more is oftentimes when people are experiencing grief and loss, less is more. It's okay to not talk. But here's the thing, and I'll have grace. I know Caitlin and I's story, we battled infertility for like 6 years, and the amount of times we'd have people, and this is a gracious statement, I promise, just be like, oh man, once you guys stop thinking about it, then you'll get pregnant. Like, what is that? Well, what it is like people do really care, and they want to alleviate pain, and they want to alleviate the mystery. Like I think those statements genuinely, like I know if I say something like that and I've had my fair share, it's because I feel uncomfortable. And I want to alleviate the anxiety in the room because someone is in grief and loss and mystery and struggle. But somehow we think that inserting knowledge, saying, oh, well, I know why you're going through what you're going. Here's the solution. I know why that's happening if you just did this. Oh, I understand where you're at. I had this other situation, and it's kind of like that. And like, what if we just said, hey, I don't know. I don't know what you're going through. I don't know the answer to why it's happening, but you know what? I'm here. I'm here, and I want to do my best to empathize and understand. Can I do anything? Can I help with anything? I don't know. But it's oftentimes in those moments where it becomes now about me than the actual person that's in grief and loss, and I need to fix it. I need to give a quick answer. I need to alleviate the anxiety, whatever it is. But what if we more often just said, I don't know. I don't know. And then the third one. This doesn't cover all of life, by the way, but leading and loving. I think, first of all, many people in this room, You either have employees, or maybe you teach a classroom, or maybe you have people in a group or a work setting that you're responsible for, and people are responsible to you. But in leading, really anything that you have influence, if you raise kids, you have so many things in which you're leading, and then loving is just our relationships. And I know I get in trouble in this one a lot because, when I do gift tests, spiritual assessments, things like that, I continually, big word, doesn't matter, apostolic, but then wisdom and discernment. Those are my top gifts above the board. I'm actually quite low pastorally. I don't know if I should say that out loud, but there's a lot of nuances to that, okay? But wisdom and discernment. To think through our lives, to make decisions, to process things, to see things in a bigger picture, to understand how things connect, to really walk through something holy. But what ends up happening, and the shadow side of that, is a know-it-all, right? It kind of goes back to you could have turned left, or yeah, you could also go straight and turn left. Well, no, I've thought through this, wisdom and discernment. I have the right answer. Come on, don't. I just listen. Everything would be so much better if you just heeded my instruction, okay? Now, what's interesting though is for those that are further away from me, it's much easier for me to be like, oh yeah, I don't know, here's some advice, take it or leave it. But those closer to me, it's why did you not? I literally, Caitlin's nodding her head. I told you it's a shadow side, all right? I got stuff to work through too. But it's because I'm no, this is actually really good advice. Why are you not taking it? I care about you deeply. Your life would be better if you just listened. Because seriously, right? That's the thing. But what if it was more, I don't know. So the people we're closest to, the people that we lead, you know what actually happens is teams actually grow together and become more built out and whole when there's vulnerability. And oftentimes what that requires is someone to say, I don't know. So you as the leader, you as the one that is loving others, what actually happens in cases is someone could ask you something or something's going on in the home and it says, man, I think this, but I really don't know. What do you think? And it creates a moment of vulnerability where other people actually feel invited in. And guess what starts to happen is you, in your leading and your loving, you actually start to grow as a person because you're getting more holistic views and a more robust way of viewing and going about life. And you actually get to experience things outside of just yourself. I don't know. When's the last time you said, I don't know? And I think for some of you in the room, there's two ways to go about this. There's probably more, but one would say you have a massive amount of pressure in your life to say, I know. To have the answer. To say, I've got this figured out. To say, here's the way. And oftentimes that can be crippling. It can be stifling. It can be paralyzing. There's burnout at some point because you don't always know and you're kind of faking it until you make it, really. But then the other side says, oh, I don't know, so I can't. The whole other side of it is, oh, I don't know, so I can't even enter in. I don't know, so I should just stay back. I don't know. But there's confidence in saying, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, let's go. Let's try it. I trust the people here, or I sense God's calling or leaning. I don't know. But that actually removes the barrier of not knowing to actually step into things. What was my next thing? Oh yeah, great. See, blank slide. Told me exactly what I needed. Let's do this. I'm going to ask you to reflect on your own life. Try to give just enough information to think about the context of I don't know, maybe in your own life. And now what I want us to do is we're just going to pause and reflect, and we're actually going to ask God to speak to us a little bit in some areas in our life. So what this is going to look like in a moment, I'm asking you just to listen, to close your eyes, take a few deep breaths to center ourselves. I'm going to ask you a couple questions to reflect on with some space in between and really just ask God. And then I'm going to read a passage over us, and we'll see what that passage speaks to, maybe some of the certainty or uncertainty in our lives. And I have one more quote we'll talk through. And then we'll do some ministry time, and then we'll go down the slip and slide out on the front yard. Sound good? Okay. So why don't you go ahead and close your eyes. Get comfortable for a moment. We've just got a handful of minutes of this. If you can just take a few deep breaths, just coming aware with your breathing. And now just doing the best you know how. It's okay if you feel distracted or if something else pops in your mind. But with eyes closed, ask God's Spirit to bring to mind an area of your life that is uncertain and that you are desiring certainty. Ask God's Spirit to bring to mind an area of your life that is uncertain, in which you are desiring certainty. And now, the best you can, reflecting on that uncertainty that was brought to mind, what are the consequences or feared outcomes if certainty never comes? Again, reflecting on that uncertainty, what are the consequences or feared outcomes if certainty never actually comes? And with those in mind, Ephesians 3:17 and 19, and I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power, together with all the Lord's holy people, to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ, and to know that this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. And again, with that uncertainty in mind, the consequences and feared outcomes, and I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power, together with the Lord's holy people, to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. And lastly, inviting God into the midst of your uncertainty. How is he at work in your life, and who is he calling you to become? Inviting God into all your uncertainty. How is he at work in your life, and who is he calling you to become? Good. Why don't we come out of that? I'm going to invite the worship team forward. And I'm just going to end with a quote and a thought. Whatever God may or may not have spoken to you in that moment, it's okay if he didn't, or if you didn't walk away with anything new. But for those that did, pay attention to that. There's something that stood out that maybe it wasn't your normal thought. Because what I want us to do, if we read this together, or as I read this, I want us to think about it together. Richard Rohr is a writer that I appreciate. He says, in my experience, the people who find God are usually people who are very serious about their quest and their questions, more so than being absolutely certain about their answers. See, when we think about the knowledge that we have access to over and over and over again, I wonder how much it's creating a false certainty in our lives. And I don't know about you, but when I'm more certain in my own life, I depend a lot less on God. That I actually start to find my own ways and my own ideas and the ways that I'm going about the world are actually working, and I have enough knowledge to eliminate fear or concern here, and then I can step into something new. But the more uncertainty that I actually have to say, God, help. God, help. I don't know. I don't know what to do with this relationship that is challenging. I don't know what to do with this thing that you're calling me into. I don't know. God, help. God, I don't know, but I'm here. And he continues. Those who know always know that they don't know. Have you ever met those older people that know a lot, and they probably say, I don't know the most? Because they've lived enough life to say, I don't. I know that I don't know. Our present notion of God is never it, because if we comprehend it, it is not God. Meaning if you have something figured out about God more than the person next to you, then you might want to say, I don't know. If you've comprehended something or fully understand God, then I'm sorry, because it's a pretty limited life. The only people who grow in truth are those who are humble and honest. This is traditional Christian doctrine. I don't know. I don't know. Without those two qualities, humility and honesty, we just don't grow. We have not been growing as a culture lately, I'll tell you that much. And then lastly, if we try to use religion to aggrandize the self, meaning, man, I can just get more control and figure God out, and these are the right ways and the moral ways that other people should be living, and I'm doing it all right, we'll end up just the opposite, proud and dishonest. Humility and honesty are really the same thing. You and I came along a few years ago. We're going to be gone in a few more years. The only honest response to such a mystery is humility. That little statement right there. You and I came along a few years ago. You realize how short our lives actually are in the grand scheme of things? Yet we think we know everything. Right? We do some Google searches and check some WebMD, and but how long have you actually been here for in the grand scheme of things? And how much longer are you actually going to be here? Is it just to gain knowledge and find certainty and tell people I know? Or is it to say, man, I'm not here for much longer? The only honest response to such a mystery is humility. God, I don't know. But man, I believe that you are good. I don't have the answers that my friends are asking me, and it doesn't seem I can convince them that you're good. God, I don't know. Can you help me? Can you help me to be humble? Can you help me to ask more questions? Can you help me to do the thing that Jesus did and just be open and draw people near to him through conversation? Can you help me just to say, I don't know, and trust that you are so good and that you're working in spite that I don't know? Because when we think we know, we still really don't know. So what relationships this week do you have to practice saying, I don't know? And it's not always, again, the person next to you, it's also with God. For those of you that have struggled, that are angry, that are stuck in this mystery that says this mystery is too big and I'm overwhelmed, God, help me. I don't know. I don't know. Why don't we stand?